Hello everyone and welcome to Bomber Talk edition number 2. It is Captain Hopwood coming to you from the flight deck, and it's a very warm welcome to my co-pilot today, to Ed Stanley. Ed, welcome along.
Fantastic to be here, Hoppy.
Well, mate, it was a little bit turbulent in the skies above Bomberland the last few weeks. We've been a little bit shaky, so in these next few rounds that we're going to discuss, it was very, very important that the boys put in some good performances. And so it was on Friday night footy that we went up to the home of football for old gentlemen with the grey locks like me, Ed. It is definitely the home of football at North Hobart Oval, under the lights to take on Hobart City. It must have fallen on the boys that this was going to be a very big match.
Yeah, absolutely, Hoppy. We knew going into the game that it was going to be a massive match and one that we definitely had to win. Well,
we got off to a very bright start, 4 goals to 2. I think we were about 7-4 at half time, but there was something about Hobart City that was a steely determination as far as I can see. They'd had some good performances without winning over the last few weeks, and there was just something about them that we couldn't shake.
Yeah, absolutely, Hoppy. They're a proud footy club, and they fought really, really hard to the end and couldn't shake them all night.
Well, it came down to the last quarter, and it was very, very exciting. It was 10 goals to 9. It was a bit of a thriller. And in fact, if I'm to be very, very blunt, young man, there was a couple of opportunities that Hobart City had when they took that ball forward but didn't capitalise. So we would suggest that that was good defence. But we hung on to what was a thrilling 2-point win.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think, to be honest, in the end we were probably lucky to sneak away with the 4 points, but we certainly take that and we're going to build from there.
So after the game, Coach Winter gets all the boys in, has a bit of a chat. How was it that he responded to that performance?
We always look at things positively, and we took the positives away from it, being the 4 points and getting a nice win on the road. But we always knew there was a lot of areas of improvement. We took them into training the next week. Yeah,
I think that was more over the point, not to say that we put anything on Hobart City to say they weren't in Bomber area, in that we thought that we were much better than them. But I think playing to our best, we thought that that performance could have been a little bit better. But as you say, we've got the 4 points, and it was 12-10-82 to Hobart City, to the mighty Bombers 13-6-84. It was Tate-Turvey again with 3 goals, Walsh 2, Bell Chambers 2. And Ed, it was Tate-Turvey who, again, best of field performance. He's having a stellar year.
He certainly is, Hoppy. There's a little joke going around between a few of the boys that everyone else is playing off for second best at the moment. He going that well, he just gets the chocolates every week. So
it will have to be a little joke. He's a little man, but he's packed full of energy. The evergreen Brycey Walsh was fantastic. I thought Bell Chambers just ran the ball between the lines. I thought your very good self from half-back and back pocket set up a lot of opportunities. And the other improvement for me was our skipper Cassidy. There'd been a little bit of criticism both from him and, let's be blunt, our senior coach. So I looked him in the eye and said, we need better from you, big man. And I thought he came out and he really showed some great leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. We always knew Cass is a quality player and he was going to stand up to the pressure eventually, and he certainly did that on the Friday night. Led from the front well.
Well, he certainly did. So it was a hard-fought victory, which was much needed from Hobart City. So then we were to host the Tigers. The Tigers have been a little bit hot and cold. It was one game that, if to be blunt, it's the 4 points that we should be putting up, but you can never do that in TSL. I can recount when we visited the Twin Ovals. I think we had our pants pulled down. So it was a game that we had to be wary about. And I have to say, Ed, didn't we start the best performance I've ever seen in the first quarter of football by the Bombers?
Oh, absolutely. We really set ourselves for that game off the back of Hobart City to come out firing. And I thought we absolutely did that. Our pressure around the ball was fantastic and we converted well on the scoreboard.
Yeah, we certainly did. So 7 goals, 4 in that first quarter to nothing, really set it up. And the adoring fans, it was fantastic that we had the 21st anniversary, I think it was, of the premiership team. So a lot of the old boys were there and they were enjoying their day. I saw some old Cats Guernseys and they were there shouting us on. But it was a very polished performance. 19-21-135 to the Tigers, a very miserly 5-11-41. There are some very impressive performances, and I certainly liked the improvement from Ryan Wiggins. I think he's probably enjoying not having the big man halting around. I know that sounds a strange thing, but he's probably got a bit more space to move into. And how did you see his game, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. Wiggo's had a really, really good year in all, to be honest, but he's really started to hit the scoreboard of late, and he's really standing up for us in the forward line.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, he's a big, strong fellow, about 192 centimetres, and a body that a lot of Sheilas, I would have thought, out there would be very keen to stand alongside. And 4 goals was a very polished performance. Again, it was Bell Chambers with 3 goals and running through the lines. Wilsh Wilson, it was great to see him come up and get a couple of goals. Hill with 2, Cassidy, Tutai Havia, of course, with a couple. Sutton, Smith, Blaisley coming in for a game, and Boscott. And our best players on the wing, it was Sutton, who I thought was terrific. Bell Chambers, Anderton was terrific. Fife, Cassidy, and of course the goal scorer, Wiggins. So, as we said, it was what was a very polished performance against the Tigers. Ed, well, for you guys, it was then a bit of a break. It was the bye for our seniors. But I think it's worth note that our development team travelled north to Prospect, and they came away with a very large victory. It was, what have we got there, 25-15, 165 to 4-28. And the good thing about that performance, Ed, I know talking to the senior coaches, it's putting pressure on you senior guys, that there's a lot of young men playing in the development league who are just sort of knocking at the door, and with performances like that, they're not knocking at the door, they're knocking the door down. So it's putting a bit of pressure on the senior group.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the boys in the twos are actually banging the door down to get their games, and we've had a lot of junior boys come up and play senior footy this year, which is really good for the club.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think that's been one of the highlights for me, is seeing some of the young fellas, Joshua Williams, I know, Anderton. There's been a few boys that have come up for their first game, and they've really handled it very nicely. In fact, I think the better the quality of football, the better those young men have gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ed, it was then the big trip up north where we went to take on North Launceston. Last time we played them, it was a very exciting game down here on Aurora Stadium. Was there anything different in the way you treated that game to when you played them down here?
Absolutely not. We back our structures and our process in, week out, and that's the way we want to play footy.
Well, it was interesting that we started with the first 3 goals, and I thought, oh, hello, the Bombers are on. And then it became evident that it was going to be a bit of a struggle for both teams. And I thought up until half-time it was pretty close. But it was in that third quarter, to me, Ed, that we had all of the play, but we didn't get any reward for it. And I could almost sense that the players, when they came into the 3-quarter time huddle, that they've given all. They'd given everything that they had, and they just didn't hit the scoreboard. Was that due to the defensive pressure of North Launceston? What did you put that down to?
I'm not really sure. Structurally, we might have fallen down a little bit, and we weren't playing how we like to play footy. But we certainly thought at 3-quarter time, I mean, we knew we played well in the 3rd quarter and had a lot of opportunity, but we certainly thought at 3-quarter time that we were a real show. Well,
I know there was quite a good crowd there, and a lot of them had made the big trip up, of course, stopping via Burgamee and having the egg and bacon roll and latte, and big hello there to Jeff and Burgamee. And they really enjoyed that trip north. But it just fell away in the last quarter, mate. We had 9-5 till 3-quarter time, and unfortunately, the harsh reality, we didn't score anything in that last quarter. Do you put that down to the dominance of North Launceston, or moreover, you thought that we'd used all our petrol tickets in that 3rd quarter?
I thought we still had petrol tickets left. They beat us around the ball a lot in the last quarter, and Bruiser, unfortunately, doesn't get any smaller late in the game, and I thought Bruiser played really well.
He's an interesting sort of code, isn't he, to watch? I mean, he's a big man, there's no doubt about that. And he moves across the ground quite impressively, you know, for a big fella. If you looked at him from the street, you sort of think this guy's a bit over the odds, but he moves well, he's tough, he provides a fair bit to that team, doesn't he? And as you said, he doesn't get any smaller as the game goes on, and he was one of the keys. I think one of the standout performances for me, especially for the first 3 quarters, was Ryan Wiggins' game. You know, Again, we mentioned too before that he's a good, strong man. He was buoyed by being included in the state squad. And I loved the way he let up for the ball. He was strong with his hands, let out, and he kicked 6 goals. Do you think prior to half-time, with the removal of Walsh with a very, very nasty concussion, had any adverse effects on the team?
Oh, I think certainly it does in footy. When you're a man down, it doesn't really affect you till late in the game, but you certainly notice it when you're one rotation down, and it certainly hurts you.
Especially a playmaker like Brycey Walsh is important. He's a hard nut. He provides a lot of the ball for the outside runners, and once he went off, it certainly did stymie some of the thoughts of what the coaching panel would like. So I guess, unfortunately, on the return bout, it was North Launceston who ran away, well, seemingly with a pretty comfortable victory. It was 16-7, 103 to Lauderdale 9-5, 59. As you said, Roosendale was a bit of a star for them, but for Lauderdale it was Ryan Wiggins who was tremendous again, and I thought Bill Chambers, Robbie McManus, Jackie Siggins, I thought Waller really did try hard. And one of the other bright points for us was the return of young Benny McGuinness. We thought that he might have been ruled out for a number of weeks, but he made that comeback game, and he certainly adds a bit of grunt to the team, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's a massively important player, Benny. He can play deep back, deep forward, so very versatile.
He certainly is very versatile. I know he'd be a little bit sore, but you know what, Ed? There's one thing that young man can do. Of course, last week we saw those magnificent chairs that were on offer that are down at Harvey Norman at Cambridge Park, and I could imagine him just laying back and pushing one of those many buttons, seeing the old armrest come out, the head go back. All he needs is dear old Dad Andrew just to bring him a slight, well, we'll say a shandy, because he's only a young man, not on the full strength just yet, and I think that'll be just perfect for him. So don't forget, coming up in the next few weeks, I know you're going to be there, Ed, you're looking forward to it. That's the big quiz night on June the 18th, and then it's time to get this jacket off and get all your footy gear away and get the big black tie out and your special dress, because it is the black and red ball on the 23rd of July. Now, before we go, Ed, I think it's very important that we not only introduced you as a player of note in our football club, but now you are taking over the role as the Junior Development Officer, and you'll be going out and about in our zone, bringing the word of Lauderdale Football Club and teaching young kiddies in our zone, not only in the schools but in the other teams. You've had a bit of a start. How are you enjoying it so far? Yeah,
really enjoying it, Hoppy. It's a good role, and something I'm really keen to do and get out there and get into it.
I know I enjoyed it the other night when you and I had a bit of a crack with the under-8s up there. Of course, the old Silver Fox barked a few instructions because they weren't too interested in what I had to say. They wanted to go to the young bloke like you, the star of the show. Anyway, Ed, thanks very much for joining us, and thank you out there in Bomberland. I think it's now time, Ed, get your seatbelt on. It's time we put the goggles over and jet off into the skies. We hope you've enjoyed today's edition, and we'll see you next time on Bomber Talk.
Fly up to win the premiership.